Beat-em ups RPGs, despite being a very old genre inaugurated in 1986 with River City Ransom, only started to become more common in recent times. Throughout the golden age of beat-em ups from 1990 to 1995, more or less, we didn't have great examples of games in this style apart from River City. Currently, it's becoming increasingly common to see games mixing these two styles, and honestly, developers haven't been doing an excellent job. But before I forget, hi, I am Savino, and this is The Flying Kick. I wouldn't blame you if you thought at first glance that Detained is a clone of River City Girls. The open world, the two characters, the young rebellious girls, and the Japanese style that permeates the entire atmosphere, all this is very similar to WayForward's blockbuster, but the similarities end there. The first and big difference here is that Detained is a game with much more adult themes. Everything starts with Reika's brother being murdered by a gang leader named Karen with a shot in the head next to her. Before having the same fate as her brother, she is literally saved by the bell when police sirens start to approach. Reika, who didn't have a clean past, is arrested, and in jail she meets Julie, who was arrested for drug possession in a setup created by Karen. 6 months later, they are released on probation and move in together in an apartment that the city provided for them while they recover. In terms of atmosphere, Detained is much more like games like Yakuza, at least the serious parts of Yakuza, or Friends of Ringo Ishikawa than River City, which is clearly a game with much lighter themes. I'm not going to go into much detail about the story here because, it's not all in the game yet, but from what I've seen, it's pretty interesting and much more mature than you would expect from a beat-em up. As for the graphics, Detained is... well, see for yourself, the game looks amazing. With all made by hand, this game has an absurd amount of scenery and NPCs. The city is ridiculously alive, with dozens of NPCs walking back and forth, students rushing, cars and trains passing in the background and in front of the screen, not to mention the lighting details. The game has a day and night cycle, and although this is not exactly a novelty, it is not exactly something that you see in every beat-em up. However, from what I could notice in my time with the game, time only passes when you complete a quest, sleep, or select the time passing button. I didn't walk up and down to make sure time passes on its own, but I would say no. Overall, the graphics here are excellent. Some places are much more well crafted than others, but I believe that it should change more towards the end of development. Animations are also pretty good. There's a lot of fluidity, although some of the common enemies are a bit stiff to move, especially the large ones. The characters, well, it's a matter of taste. I'm not a big fan of this look how radical, cool and Gen Z style that you see in this game and the River City Girls, but there's no denying that the characters are very well crafted. Okay, now that we've covered the usual stuff, let's talk about what we really like here, gameplay and the good old beat-em up action. In terms of gameplay, Detained has a lot of RPG elements. In fact, you could say that Detained is a collection of basically all the mechanics you find in modern indie games. From crafting to relationships, which is not yet implemented in the game, you can do everything here, and honestly, from what I could test, it's all very well stitched together and most of the things don't seem to be mandatory. Well, and the best thing to do is to start describing these mechanics, and probably we'll be here for a while. First, you don't start with all your moves. Being a game in the style of River City and Ringo, it was to be expected that some kind of grind would be necessary here. However, unlike the games mentioned, where you have to buy the moves in a store or be lucky enough to stumble upon someone who will teach you a new move, in Detained you simply enter your menu and choose from the available moves which ones you want or can buy. And not only moves, all the stats of your character can be improved here. Strength, endurance, all of this can be improved directly in the menu at the time you see fit, even in the middle of a fight. As I mentioned before, the game also has a crafting system, but nothing is mandatory. Here you will find a lot of items in boxes, barrels and other breakable objects around the scene. These items will serve to improve the various weapons you will find in the game. Well, at least I imagine there are many. So far I have only found a baseball bat, a piece of wood and a piece of pipe. But you can see that things are not going to stop there. In Detained, you can also make your own food. Of course, you will find food by beating enemies or inside the breakable objects in the scene, but if you want to improve the status of your character permanently, you will have to go home and cook your own food. To make these meals, all you need is the items and your kitchen. There is no minigame or anything like that. It is very straightforward. The only thing that will make you lose some time is getting the ingredients, which in most cases will have to be bought in specific stores. And there are many stores in this game. Take a look at the map that, as I will talk about later, is huge, and look at the number of shops. As far as I can see, money in Detained is not exactly a problem. Going from one side to the other, breaking some boxes and doing a simple mission already gives you enough money to buy a lot of things, so to make food all you need to know is where each ingredient is sold and go to the store. Yes, it would be very boring walk up and down behind each store every time you want to cook. For this, you can use the fast travel in the game using the bus stops, just like in River City Girls. But here each trip costs a little money. Nothing expensive, but it is something to keep an eye on. As I said before, the map of this game is huge. Looking at it from above, you can already see that there is a lot to see and discover in this game, but what you can't see yet is that inside some buildings there is also its own map. The school itself is huge and has a map just for it that rivals the city map in size. And here on the map is where you see your next mission, where are the stores, bus stops, and most importantly, where the raids and events are located. Raids are places where you find group of enemies, although they will appear in some of the streets in the city. It is in these places that the largest number of them will be concentrated. This is where you will do most of the grind necessary to get money, consumables, and material for upgrading your weapons. After completing a raid, it disappears from the map and only returns the next day. In the current beta, there are only 2 places in the city with raids, but there will be more with time. The events are the story missions that you must complete. They basically work like raids, but with a boss at the end to spice things up. Now, when it comes to combat, Detained still needs some tweaks here and there. On paper, the combat works well, you have several attacks that can be freely connected, air movements, specials and cancels. All of this is very well crafted, and due to the number of moves you will have available in the final version, you will not lack ways to ruin the life of your enemies. The problem here is that the hits lack that impact. It seems that there is no resistance to your enemies and they are taken by your blows without reaction until they die. Looking at the screen and seeing someone play, it is difficult to transmit this, but the moment you pick up the controller, you will feel that something is off here. Despite having many moves at your disposal, you will not need more than your basic combo here. Its strength, range, and the fact that the enemies never fall while you hit them make the base combo more than enough for you to kill all the enemies, including the bosses. The AI also does not help much. Enemies will keep walking up and down, avoiding you, often making you go to them from the other side of the screen to be able to end the wave and proceed in the level. There's a lack of aggression, tactics, and a sense of self-preservation in the enemies. Overall, Detained has the makings of an excellent game. The more adult story, the beautiful graphics, and the vast world with plenty to do all add up to a package that has clearly been built with a lot of love and dedication. It is a promising game with a lot of potential, but it still needs some polish. The combat's fun, the world is huge, there's a lot to do, but the AI needs to be improved and the impact of the hits needs to be increased. I'm sure that with a little more work, Detained can become a great game. Unfortunately, the combat lacks weight and impact. It's not bad combat, the way you can string your attacks together freely is excellent, the variety of moves and the way you acquire them, all of this shows the game has potential and variety, but if for you combat is fundamental, I would say, at least for now, to lower your expectations. I say there's still hope for this game. There is a slightly outdated demo on Steam, link in the description, and you can see for yourself what I meant about the combat. Detained still doesn't have a release date or a price, but you can be sure that as soon as the game comes out, there will be a full review here on the channel. And that's it for the preview, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I will be back next week with another preview, which I'm sure you all will enjoy. In the meantime, I hope you all have an awesome day, and remember, keep it up.